So, namaste. Welcome to Satsang today. So, in our Satsang, as we meet like this, and also Satsang is really our whole life, um, we begin to move towards the deeper realization of who we really are. So, not simply reading about or hearing about that there's something greater than just this sense of a someone, but also beginning to experience it. And sometimes the role of a teacher is to directly point someone to that, and satsang would be for that. Sometimes the role is also to give some information, some explanation, and maybe in that we can allow a few of our own blockages, our own self-doubts, our own sense of insecurity and unworthiness to uh, dissolve. And it's really something like this I wanted to talk about today. In our Spanish community, someone asked a question this morning that was really um, provoked a response within me that I really thought it would be good to speak about today. And to give some information on my own journey, my own awakening, and then explain as you listen, you might recognize your own awakening in this too, that your own process has been the same as pretty much every other being that has ever woken up to the truth, um, waked up to. So the question was, and I'm paraphrasing, asking for some self-inquiry question that would really spur something within us to really be able to consistently self-inquire. Because the self-inquiry that was happening for this person was not so consistent yet, let's say. And when self-inquiry becomes consistent, that's when something really powerful is going to happen. It's happening anyway, but it's suddenly gonna, at the end of this imagined journey, it speeds up and becomes very rapid and kind of dissolves into a point of clear seeing. And most of us are slowing that down without realizing because we're expecting ourselves to be able to consistently self-inquire or meditate or contemplate the three main tools that we use here in this pathway: meditation, contemplation, and self-inquiry. to uh, to be able to do that like a sage could straight away. So I want to self-inquire. I want to start some meditation. I really want to contemplate if this belief is true. And I'm going to do it 30 days, which is the advice I always give, because in 30 days we've gone 30 days without letting our old thought pattern run. And we've formed a new habit. We can't simply erase an old habit. We have to replace it with a new one. So meditation, we're replacing the habit of paying attention to thoughts first by paying attention to what is real first, and eventually that swaps over. So that we're watching who we really are first. It's the go-to place for attention automatically. In contemplation, we come to where we automatically, habitually question if a thought is true, rather than simply believing it and suffering. Self-inquiry, come to experience that we're not really a someone at all, that we are something much bigger. in which our sense of a person and our body and our thoughts and all of that is happening. And we come to see that habitually and effortlessly. But if we if we're comparing ourselves to someone who is already awakened and living free, we're always going to feel inadequate in that. We're always going to look at these effortless habits that this being has of looking at the truth and feel that we're not good enough. And so I really wanted to speak about this today because I want to tell you my own journey. It's easy to look at someone when they're already living free and to assume that that they have done something differently or not been through the same process. And there is in each of us some part of our mind that is going to be questioning whether we can do this, whether we are even supposed to be here in Satsang or anything like that, right? Always looking for the reason it might not work. And in my own journey, started off exactly the same as everyone does, and that is completely immersed in thoughts. I didn't even know what awakening was until my late 20s. I certainly wasn't inclined to meditate at all. I didn't even know what meditation was. I did my first meditation when I was uh, 20, 30, 31, something like that. I don't know. No, 20, 27-ish, something. Time has gone all funny. And I wanted to share this so that we're not having any delusions that awakened beings somehow had a different journey. The journey that you're having is the journey. When I first started to realize I needed to meditate consistently, I wasn't able to meditate consistently. It was more off than it was on, and there was certainly more criticism and um, judgment of myself than successful meditation, let's say. And when beliefs started to come up inside as a result, they've been coming up all the time. Experiences in my life were showing me I was holding on to beliefs. Then there was this recognition of a need to contemplate some process that we have called contemplation to really question if these thoughts are true. And again, that contemplation was sporadic at best, and I must have started a 30-day process, I don't know how many times, and then somehow along the way forgotten. Somehow along the way, um, without even realizing, I'd gotten distracted by thoughts. And even when this urge came for self-inquiry, this excitement, this realization, this might be the most powerful tool I've ever had, ever realized, still I couldn't consistently self-inquire. I would do 1 or 2 days, and then it'd be another 6 months had gone by before I realized I dropped it. Only when I was feeling so terrible would I become aware that I'd dropped my practice. And in our community, we have this thing called the Dissolving the Ego course. And everyone's welcome to join if you want to. Everyone's completely welcome. And there's 4 lessons in this course, and it's put this way for a reason. The first lesson is meditation. Because as I began to meditate more consistently for 20 minutes a day, when I was really, really seeking truth, I used to like meditate for 6 hours a day, end up with a really bad headache and legs that I couldn't actually move because they'd gone so numb in that process. And my life was actually getting worse because I had this idea that if I just meditate enough, somehow it will all magically work itself out. But my meditation was bringing stuff to the surface that I didn't know what to do with. So for the longest time, there was this deep sense of um, meditation being the only thing I could really manage, and it just became without blaming myself, noticing the inconsistency and uh, allowing for more consistency to come by not blaming myself for not meditating regularly. It started to happen regularly. And as we're bringing attention back to what is real, which is the meditation we're doing here in this teaching, nothing else but bringing attention back to what is real. Every moment the attention is on what's real, we're allowing more light, more life force, more energy, grace, whatever you want to call that, to be in the mind and the body. As we're starting to accumulate more life force, we're beginning to notice the background of silence, stillness, a deep sense of just being, whatever we call that, the divinity that we are, the infinite silence, pure consciousness. In our meditation, we might be touching upon it more. Doesn't mean we can at that point hold on to it or experience it all the time. But as we're starting to notice this real being more and more often in these micro moments in meditation, you bring your attention back to awareness, stillness, silence, presence. I'm using all those words synonymously. In that 2 seconds before attention gets drawn back to thoughts out of habit, there's a life force being able to enter the body more. And the identity is very slowly switching over to this is what I am, very slowly. But there's enough recognition that there is something else about us that we begin to have the capacity to work on contemplation, to recognize that these beliefs that I have thought to be true my whole life might not be true. So the fear, there was the constant background of my life was and shame and anger and unworthiness. I started to realize they were showing me these emotions, an idea that I was holding on to. I'm really not good enough. I'm not safe. There's no way to get what I want. And so, in that, a little extra life force, a little bit of tiny clarity to be able to contemplate and to start to get back all the energy that I was investing in these beliefs. When that energy starts to come back, it has an amazing effect of, firstly, your meditation and your contemplation become more consistent. You are meditating more days than you're missing. And your contemplation is becoming more and more, but you're starting to see the power of consistent practice. That it doesn't even almost matter what we're practicing, but if we can do it consistently, something is really shifting inside. And for me, with meditation and contemplation going on together, there was this reawakening of this urge to do self-inquiry, to really begin to see what I am. And I had wanted that for a long time. I'd read about these sages that did this self-inquiry, but without the recognition starting to happen slowly that there's some silence, there's some stillness, there's some presence that's here through my meditation and contemplation. There wasn't enough resources energetically to stay with self-inquiry. So lesson 1 is meditation, lesson 2 is contemplation, lesson 3 and 4 are self-inquiry. Because that's the order that it works for all of us. And of course, we can start self-inquiry today. We can start contemplation. We don't have to begin meditation and wait for months and months before we can move further. I'm only saying this to perhaps allow some self-blame to disappear within you, that although we have this deep desire to wake up to truth. Usually, when we first come to the path, our thoughts are so scattered in so many areas, and we're investing so much of our energy in these thoughts that we can't be consistent with our practice yet. And I want to tell you that that's the process that we all go through. It's nothing that any of us are doing wrong. It's simply the process. So when our meditation and our contemplation become deeper and more powerful, all this energy that we're gaining back funnels into our self-inquiry. And our self-inquiry starts sporadically at first. You guessed it right. Just like everything else. And then as we're beginning to really see that no belief can survive without the idea of a separate person, without the idea of separation. We begin to realize the fastest and greatest shortcut of all is self-inquiry. And at that point, it's easy to forget that it's really our meditation and contemplation that got us to that point, where we could hold on consistently to a self-inquiry question for 30 days. And I reached this point eventually where I could stay with a self-inquiry question. I kept looking for this separate person, and something became urgent inside. There was suddenly a lot of energy wanting to go with this question. And there was 2 or 3 months where I was just obsessed by looking and not finding a person. Every time I would search my beingness, the same beingness that I was accessing in meditation, but still with this belief that I was looking at beingness, I was looking at consciousness from the person I thought I was. My self-inquiry began to destroy that idea. It became clearer every time I looked. And then as this idea of a person was beginning to disappear, that there's thoughts, there's sensations, there's sense perception, there's a body. And I can't find anyone orchestrating all of this. Can't find any someone that's choosing what to say, even. Or even anyone that's choosing what practice to do, or choosing to be consistent. This is naturally what's going to happen to every human being at some point in their evolution. This is what happens to us all. And the saints and sages are simply those ones that are a little further ahead than us, perhaps in our own development, but no different than us. And then after a couple of months of really working with this, and this is the lesson 3 of the course, looking for a separate person, not being able to find one, and we can certainly we'll explore this later with anyone that wants to do some. I'm absolutely up for it. I will take questions later. But something happened inside that 2 or 3 months that I was really, it's not that I was making it happen. It was just happening by itself. My first thought when I woke up in the morning was, can I find a person? And that was so different. Before it was like, oh God, I'm back here again. I really don't want this. And something begins to gather pace. Can you feel it within your own awakening? Something's beginning to speed up. So at some point for us all, self-inquiry will become the most exciting thing we've ever met. When I first heard about self-inquiry, I thought it was intellectual and boring and pointless, only to come back 10 years later and realize it was what I'd been looking for. But that realization wouldn't be possible without the meditation and the contemplation. We all have a large amount of our energy tied up in a sense of separate self, that it's hard to stay focused on anything. If you notice that the attention is like in meditation, coming back to thoughts after a nanosecond, you bring it back to watching who you really are. And then less than 2 seconds later, it's gone again, and we haven't even realized. And then eventually, there's so much we have let go of, so much we believe to be true. Mostly this idea that we're a person, that we can consistently self-inquire. What happened for me was this looking for a person really it took over my life. And it felt like a caterpillar going into a chrysalis. And the caterpillar, I don't know if you know, but when it goes into the chrysalis, it dissolves into mush. Or maybe I've said this already before, but I always had this idea that it just goes in there, seals itself in, and then it grows wings, colorful wings. But actually, the process is it gets dissolved. It's nothing at all for a while. It's just a mush, a mass of substance. It doesn't look like a caterpillar. It doesn't look like a butterfly. It doesn't look like anything. And then it's kind of reformed into this butterfly. And we all go through this process. But for the longest time, we don't realize we're in the chrysalis. Actually, only when we start to get our wings do we realize, wait a minute, something's really starting to happen here. And still, the mind will be saying, you're not going to make it. Even when you come out and you're drying off your new beautiful wings and you decide to take flight, your mind will still say, you're not going to get it. And all of this culminated for me in after this period of 2 or 3 months looking for a person. About 2 or 3 months after that, I suddenly got obsessed with this question that appeared one day in meditation. This question, where am I? And I thought that's a weird question. And I wrote it down in my journal about a week after that. It just started coming with, again, I was obsessed with it. Naturally, human beings are obsessive, especially about this. It's okay to be obsessive about this, isn't it? Of course, if our whole life is out of balance, we might need to take a look. But none of us would be here in Satsang if we didn't have this epic love affair with truth that would carry us through the uh, trials and tribulations and challenges of waking up to truth. And all of this came to a point for me where this question, where am I? It took over my entire life and basically went through my entire thought process and pretty much destroyed all remaining ability I had to believe in any separation at all. In about 90 days, not by choice, it just kind of happened. I was obsessed again. But this urgency and this obsession was only possible because of the process I had been through. My first meditation, you might know, I had this intense bliss. And the second meditation, I had this intense fear. And I thought, this is, not working. So I gave it up. I didn't do any more meditation for nearly 7 years. So my meditation was just as inconsistent as yours. So what if this is the process? The infinite consciousness is waking up to itself. And it's doing that under the influence of all the thoughts that it believes about itself to be true, that it's a someone, that it's not good enough, that it's not deserving enough, all of those things that we believe. And still, that pull of truth is calling us. to one inevitable conclusion. And it's like our whole path goes from this into this one narrow point where we somehow end up in the chrysalis and we come out the other side of that, unable to believe any thoughts. As crazy as it sounds, you might not even know when you're in the chrysalis because there's nobody taking score. There's nobody saying, I'm really getting somewhere now, my awakening's really happening. And so, if we can understand that this is the process that we all go through, and even great saints and sages that seem to have this instant awakening, such as Ramana as an example, have done this process in their previous lifetime. Nobody is born automatically knowing how to be consistent and having enough life force to do spiritual practice consistently. It is how it is for all of us, and it isn't anything that we're doing wrong. Our thought structure, we have planted and energized these thoughts unknowingly from this idea, this seed root idea that we're someone. And the more that we can relax into the understanding that this is how it is for us all, the faster that speeding up is going to come, because apart from the belief that you're a separate person, there's one other belief that really drains a lot of energy. You know, devotion, commitment to truth, regular practice, the intensity of that practice, the urgency of it, all really matter to how quickly and easily we see who we are. And those things are easy when we have enough life force. What is the one belief other than separation? The idea that we're a separate being that drains more energy than anything else. It's this idea that we don't deserve awakening, that we're not going to make it. Of course, we're going to make it. You are that place that you're trying to get to. And that's the other role of the teacher is to clearly state the truth and to say, there's no way you're going to fail at this. We can delay it by believing that we don't deserve it, and then we'll have to keep experiencing that we don't deserve it and being inconsistent in our practice to prove it to ourselves, unknowingly sabotaging ourselves, staying up too late one night so we don't get up for meditation the next morning, or whatever way it manifests for us. Totally even forgetting about meditation until 3 days later when you realize, wow, I didn't even think about it. So by the time you end up in satsang like this, you're already inside that chrysalis. It's what I have to tell you. You can feel the dissolution, the dissolving of this old structure of yourself, right? Not always pleasant. In fact, very infrequently is it pleasant. But as that structure that we've built around ourselves begins to dissolve, who we thought we were, as open and exposed as that can feel at first, the recognition of who we really are begins to easily come to the forefront. We are that place from which all thoughts arise, from which all forms arise. So if you compare yourself to someone who's already gotten to that point of consistency in their practice or in anything in life, we're ignoring that fact, the fact that they had to turn their own habits around too. In fact, that's the only reason that any teacher can be of any authentic help, is because they have already achieved, done what you're trying to do right now. And they're able to say with the power of truth that anyone can do this. And it's true. But it's going to be very hard if we keep thinking that our inconsistencies, our resistance to practice, to our fear of self-inquiry or whatever it is our fault, or it's evidence that we're not going to make it. So I'd like to offer an opportunity we all have here together to just forget that and recontextualize our whole journey, our whole process here, that all we're doing is switching over some very well-established habits of thinking in a certain way and the actions and words that come from those into something different. All awakening really is enlightenment, is a shift over of habits, what we're paying attention to. Meditation, self-inquiry, contemplation are all ways to pay attention to what's real and bring attention away from what's unreal. As we bring attention away, it's dissolving. There's nothing we can do by looking at our old sense of self that's going to make it go away. Our very looking at it is energizing it, because we are the infinite power that creates the cosmos. So can we reset and begin again without any self-blame today, now, and forevermore? It doesn't mean your mind is going to understand what we've said here. It doesn't need to. But if you could sit with Ramana and ask him what happened, if you could sit with any great sage that has ever walked this earth, they all went through the same process. I mean, what was Christ actually doing between his birth? We hear about his birth and we don't hear anything else about him until much later. What was he doing? The exact same as what you're doing right now. Same process. Somehow we tend to compare ourselves and to these great beings and conclude that we're not good enough. The Buddha had to go through this process too. And his convergence into that point is when he sat under this the Bodhi tree, right? And that's it. I'm not moving from here until it's over. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm sure he said it more eloquently than that, but none of that. He wouldn't have been able to sit under the Bodhi tree without all of his previous practice. I really would like you to hear this message. What if that is just the process of the transformation of an apparent human being into the clear recognition of who we are, which makes it available for all of us. The very fact that you want awakening means it's already happening. It cannot be stopped. And there's only one conclusion, one ending. And unless we blame ourselves, the faster that conclusion will come. Okay, so I'd like to invite any questions or sharings or challenges that you might have. If you want to just raise your hand, we'll see how many we get through. Go to Christine first. Yeah.
Hey, Helen.
Hi, love.
This was good timing as usual.
It's like there's only
Uh,
one of us, right?
yeah, like literally last night, I'm looking at the picture of Ramana and I'm like, what did you do that I'm missing? And the consistency is definitely part of it. And there's some feeling that what you said, like, it's just never going to happen. It feels like my whole life I've been, you know, getting close to it. Like, there's a sense, I know there's the doer, there's all of that, but yeah, I think that like everything you said feels very, very spot on. And and that was kind of my prayer last night of just I don't even know what the ask is, but whatever is,
My most eloquent prayer in the darkest times was all I could manage was help. That was it.
yeah,
Just one word, help.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's that comes from somewhere deep inside, right?
yes. And it definitely feels like the same thing you said with the chrysalis. It feels like um so much is just dissolved. And then this kind of final piece of feeling like this work situation, I just made a really bold decision, but I just dropped even that. And I am just like, um, yeah, it just feels like I don't know what direction, but I can only like be here and be open and be okay with like not knowing. Um, yeah, I just whatever that unworthiness is or the I'm never gonna get it, um, uh, like I guess I just hmm, well, I restarted the 30-day challenge, so I have not been consistent at all. I
And
forget
that's
about it. Yeah,
normal, right?
yeah,
That's normal.
yeah.
If somebody said, you know what, I'm really excited by your teachings, I'm going to start a 30-day challenge to contemplate, is it really true I'm not good enough? And then 30 days later they say I've finished 30 days consistently, I'd say you're lying. Nobody, nobody does it consistently the first time, or the second time, or the third, or the fourth. I think it was like 7 attempts for me before I got a consistent 30 days. But you are one step closer to being consistent, right? And maybe you can feel some fire inside, but this time I'm even more determined. I'm not gonna let this go. Somehow I'm gonna really try to see if I'm dropping it somehow.
Yeah, yeah, like there's nothing else that's more important, but I've made everything else more important. I've gotten distracted, but it's, and that's where it's just kind of like I don't know what needs to happen. Like that's the help part, because I've done this for many, many years on and off. It's just like something has to shift.
For me, it was 24 and a half years of being perfectly inconsistent, epically inconsistent. So good at it. Actually, while it was happening, it's 24 and a half years of blaming myself. But I realized afterwards, 6 months of being really, really consistent changed everything. But without those 24 and a half years, I wouldn't have been able to do the 6 months. I had to seemingly fail, feel distraught, have a stronger desire to do it again next time. And it took 7 times before of that happening before I could have the resources inside to really notice that thought. They said, you don't need to meditate today. And I'm like, I know, but I want to. I'm gonna do it. Or I'll meditate later when I get back. Actually, no, I'm gonna do it now because I know how my day goes. It just I run out of time or something, whatever happens. And that is the effect of the old habit of thinking we're a person still at play, but it's losing power and we're replacing it. But we're in the switchover, right?
Yeah, and I really like the question of waking up asking, can I find someone?
The
Because
last,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
The last time, the sixth time when I realized I'd dropped it again for the sixth time, I wrote on my on a I had loads of those little post-it notes and put it right next to my bed on a piece of paper. What am I? Or is there a person? I can't remember now. I put it in my slippers, a note in my slippers. There was one in the car. There was one in the fridge. There was one wherever. I stuck it on the TV screen, and anywhere I was going to go, so that I couldn't go too long without remembering to check who I actually was. But I wouldn't have even been able to have the capacity to have that idea to do that previously if I hadn't failed six times already. And I proved to myself I'm really consistent at being inconsistent. Can we celebrate that, right? All of us are,
Mhm.
until we're not. What's going to make the difference if this is your last time of starting again? If this is the last time you start again, ever, because it's just continuous and ongoing, is how much you blame yourself. If you could live for a week with everyone here on Satsang, if we could all live in each other's homes for a week, for example, we'd see the same challenges, the same resistances, the same obstacles, the same self-doubt, all of it. Maybe this is the one for you. Maybe not, but either way, it's okay. What is all of this worth if we're not relaxing a little and enjoying the journey a bit more?
Mm.
Maybe that is awakening. Happily observing how inconsistent I am being and not blaming myself. Somehow that leads to consistency.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have a good feeling about this one, though, for you.
Well, I have my post-its.
Ah, but that's a lot. Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Hottie.
Hello.
Hi, love.
Hi. Um, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And something you just said triggered something in me. Uh, the word enjoying, just enjoying this process. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I have a question. It's more that it resonates with me that I feel a strong longing just to be at peace, just to be in the silence. And I notice that if I try to achieve awakening,
Mhm.
that my ego takes a run with it. I don't know if that are the right words.
Yep.
And it feels as a very thin line that at the moment I think about or try something to get somewhere, that I get taken out of it. And this morning I was walking in the woods and I thought, oh, I just want to be with my attention in in the now, in the love, in the peace I can sense, and not do anything actually, and just enjoy it. I feel a strong longing for that. But sometimes, whoop, I go out of it very easily, or
Mhm.
yeah, and as I hear you say, that's all the process. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I have a question, but I just would like to share it with you.
Yeah. It's beautiful what you shared. the same for me. Even if I was listening to a talk like I just gave, if when I was seeking, there'd be something mentally taking notes, going, right, I'm going to put this into action. As soon as this satsang is finished, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this, and so busy being a person trying to achieve awakening. And then it finally became clear that that's just an energy, a sense of doing, 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 reaching, trying to get somewhere. It's just an energy, right, inside you.
Mm.
You can feel it. The body gets tense. There's an energy that's just kind of got to get this done. Got to do
Yeah,
it.
and it's outward or
Yeah.
forward or something. It's yeah.
But if you realize that you're also watching that, there's an awareness of even this seeker. Maybe the seeker is just another phenomenon arising that can help us prove that we're watching it. So this idea comes less and less often that I went out. It's just some energy, like a hamster running in a wheel, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah,
And we're watching it. And sometimes the hamster is running really fast and getting nowhere.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes he's just
Um,
chilled out. But either way, we're watching.
yeah, and that happens in me. It happens in me. Yeah.
So even the seeker
Mm.
needn't disturb us when we see that we're seeing it. It's just an energy moving. You can kind of
Mm.
feel it, right? It's just happening in the body, a feeling.
Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
And just going, there it goes again. Oh, there it goes again.
Mm, yeah.
And it's gone again. It's off again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're just
But
gradually detaching from it then, right?
yeah. Yeah, it's also beautiful to feel that it is actually also helpful to just come back. Maybe come back is not the right word, but see that it is also something that is coming and going
Yeah.
in all of this, whatever I am. Yeah.
And it's just a sensation, right?
Mm,
It's coming and going like a thought,
yeah.
and it's observed by the real self who's already at peace and free. And then it's impossible to believe I went, It's just, oh, there it goes again.
Yeah. 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 And that's also the difficulty with words, because sometimes I find it difficult to find the right words to say what is actually experienced. And then I fall back in the pattern of me with the words. But I also know at some level, oh, there is no me. So yeah, that's yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing.
Yeah,
Lovely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
You too. Okay, so we'll take the hands that are up here now, and I'll ask for no more hands up. That would be great. Thanks. So we'll go to Harpreet next.
Hi, Helen. Can you hear me?
I can. Thanks, love.
Hi. Yeah, so I spoke to you about 2 weeks ago about this energetic turbulence. So in that 2 week period, I constantly reminded myself of what you said to let go of all strategies. And it kind of felt like a relaxation, but what I found is a lot more of this kundalini energy is coming up and it's hitting the chakras. I can feel it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it feels like an opposing force is holding stuff down. So it feels like repressed emotions. And I say repressed because I can't label them as, and then the mind sort of, this is where that doing energy, which I feel, for me anyway, feels so deep rooted, it kind of comes in and says, you should be able to name these emotions and you should be feeling these emotions. So I'm aware of that. And when it's happening, because it's so intense, like even now when I'm sat here, my whole torso feels like it's on fire, it's vibrating. And at the same time, this kind of pushing down energy. And I'm just wondering if it's a subtle avoidance to feel. And then the thoughts that it activates my mind, and the constant thoughts that keep repeating is that I'm depressed, and the failure thought keeps coming up. So when I then sit and look for this person, the person that's depressed, I never find the person, but I have this very flat, melancholy sort of feeling. And I just know intuitively that nothing, no matter even if I got what I wanted on a material level, I know that it's not gonna appease this this feeling. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like when you exhaust all options, and it's just this very, like I said, a very flat feeling,
That's
depression.
that is the emotion. This flat feeling of depression, despondency, whatever you want to call it, failure. That is the emotion. It's not hiding per se, but hasn't been really recognized. So the kundalini is naturally flowing upwards, as you know,
Mm.
and it is going to, in each chakra, it's going to be slowed down or hit these slower frequencies that are made of the thoughts that we believe to be true. Naturally, it's pushing its way through, and that can sometimes be a very uncomfortable process without the process of contemplation. So we take the first and most obvious emotion that we see and feel, and the Kundalini rises much more effortlessly and smoothly when we dissolve these blockages. The blockages are only, if you imagine the Kundalini as being a very fast-moving, high frequency, the idea that I'm not good enough, for example, or I can fail, or I am failing, is very slow, still, low frequency. And when this fast moving energy meets this slow moving energy, that's where it hurts. That's why the body hurts and everything. And I've seen this in my own awakening. I've seen this. This is where I met so many people that have done so many techniques to stimulate this energy, but without a tool to actually work with what comes up in that process. So a good question then is it really true I can fail, right? If that's what the emotion is, the feeling, this constant background feeling of apathy, despair, whatever you want to call it, failure. What is it saying to you, that feeling that you described so clearly? What does it tell you? Is it a sense of apathy? I'm just never gonna
Yeah, it's
get
a
through.
feeling of I'm stuck and it's always going to be like this. I don't feel safe as well. That's another.
Mhm.
Um, and then a story, oh, it must be bad karma, something.
Yeah, none of that is true. All awakening, all meditation, any raising of Kundalini, anything like that, or if it starts to rise on its own, it must be complemented with some way to question the beliefs. That's the only thing that has been missing from the practice that you're doing. That's the only thing. It's like a fast-flowing river, and in the river there are these big boulders of rock, these beliefs,
Yeah.
and the energy smashes up against these boulders, and we feel it. So
Yeah.
we ask a question consistently, and you can ask it as often as you like, and your very experience right now is perfect for this is the blockage. The mind says that you're having these thoughts that you're never going to make it because of the blockage. But the thoughts and the emotion and the blockage in energy are the same thing showing up three different ways. So first it appears as a subtle energetic form inside the kundalini channel, the chakra. And then that turns into an emotion, right? This apathy, we could say. And then the mind is thinking all these thoughts that come out of this apathy. There's no point. You're never going to make it. You're stuck, all of those. So all this is to say that the experience you're having right now is exactly where to apply the contemplation. Is it true that you can get stuck or fail? And those are two questions I would really, whichever one of those, fail or get stuck, be stuck. You're not a person trying to wake up. You are that space, the great space of awareness in which the body and the kundalini and the chakras and everything else is appearing. So you take what the mind says and you turn it into a question. Is this really true? And you do it for 5 or 10 minutes. And there's plenty of videos here on the channel about contemplation. And you do it for 30 days consistently, as consistent as you can. And you're starting to turn something around.
Yeah, because I also tried to look at what my relationship with the Kundalini was, because it happened spontaneously. My journey actually started with self-inquiry, who am I? And I went through a period where there was no voice in the head. It was very calm and
And
peaceful.
that's very normal, but
Mm.
still, this stuff, nobody gets away without doing this stuff. Every great sage has had to look at these beliefs before or after awakening deepens. It's the process, right? So self-inquiry is fantastic, but without a vehicle to dissolve the beliefs that come up, it's going to be very difficult. So this is now tidying up the mess that the sense of separate self made, right? Just by asking these questions. Nothing that you're doing wrong. The blockage is the idea that you could be stuck, right? And that idea is given so much importance and we agree with it completely. So as we start to question, is that true? It feels true and we keep experiencing it, but if we don't question, we're going to keep going around. You are the infinite consciousness, and anything that you give your attention to, you're going to experience. Especially this idea that you can be stuck, right? That you're never going to make it.
Yeah. And do you feel that diet plays a role? Because I even cut out caffeine to, thinking that it's stimulating it, but it's made no difference.
The body is affected more than anything by what we think to be true. 0.0000001% of it is what we eat, what we do with our body. 99.999% of it is what we believe to be true. Because even if you change your diet, I did it too. I went vegetarian, then I went vegan, then I went wheat-free vegan, then I
Mm.
went raw food only. And my body was in a real mess because I was a person doing it. And it blocks the solar plexus chakra then, and the energy can't get any further up. So if the diet needs to change, let that happen on its own, organically.
Yeah. Rather than imposing that I should cut out this or change this.
Because all the benefits of the good food that you're eating are lost in the energy of being someone doing something or from the fear, right? You could eat the best diet ever, but do it from an environment of fear, and your body can't absorb the nutrients so well anyway.
Yeah. And I get that sense when that doing energy comes in, I feel it viscerally, like the body tightens even more. And then I remember, and it slightly
Yeah.
loosens, even with this intensity, there
Yeah.
is some space there. And
So
unless it gets very,
you contemplate the apathy question first.
yeah,
And as you're doing that, the energy will begin to rise up. Then it'll hit the solar plexus. And you'll have to look at this if you're really doing anything. Because you know it here that you're not, but you'll
mm,
have to contemplate it, right? And then it will move up to the next one. And that's the process for all of us until it gets to the crown.
right. So this kundalini process is a natural part of awakening.
The major myth in awakening, and I wish I could somehow erase this from everyone's consciousness, is that doing enough meditation and self-inquiry is going to get you there. And I guess it's true, but unless we have some way to examine and let go of the old thoughts, when we're meditating, all we're doing is speeding up, bringing more energy in, more energy coming up with the same blockages still there,
Yeah.
right? And then they get worse and more obvious.
That's how it's felt for me. So, and thank you
Same
for
for me.
talking and acknowledging Kundalini energy, because a lot of teachers just they don't talk about it.
Part of the process, but it's very misunderstood. It's not even the Kundalini that's the problem. It's the slower moving energies of the beliefs.
Yeah, yeah,
Once
because
they're cleared out of the system, it will just move. You won't even feel it moving because it's just constantly moving.
yeah, and that's why I feel that upward, but also simultaneously that pushing down
That's
force as
just,
well. And
yeah,
that's where it gets really intense and painful in the body.
yeah.
Okay.
So one by one, these things will come up to contemplate, knowing that it'll just be the next belief will be presented to you, and you're just clearing out the system. We're all doing the same thing.
Yeah. So it'll come to me rather than me thinking, well, what is the belief and what is the emotion I need to feel?
Can you see that you were overlooking the actual experience you were having right now? It was showing you what the emotion was.
Yeah.
But we're looking for some, I don't know, something.
Yeah. Because I think the mind had this idea that I'm not feeling these repressed emotions and I need to know what they are and I need to feel them. So it's going back into
Little,
that doing.
yeah, a little hint is that whatever the mind says the problem is, you can guarantee that's the one thing it isn't. You can cross that one. Whatever mind says is going wrong, that's the one thing you can be certain is not what's happening.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And just to ask, what is this? What is this about? Right?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll go to Mitra.
Hello, Helen.
I love.
Hi. Uh, you talked about consistency today and the practice. I have another issue. My issue is when you guys talk about all these years, because I've been into this for 5 years, and it's been so intense, the desire, that I mean, it was very weird the way it happened. I wasn't even into this. I wasn't into it for suffering. I don't know how this desire just came up. And it's been so intense, it actually killed all of my life. Like, I lost desire for everything. Apart from my son, I basically don't care about anything else, you
Me
know.
neither. Me neither. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, but it's a lot of suffering. And every time I hear,
Why?
like
Let me
10
stop.
years, 20 years, I'd rather slash my wrist. Can't wait that long. This is my issue.
Let me be clear. I couldn't wait at all. I got to a point where 24 and a half years of being willing to wait, right? The 6 months that really made a difference was when I could not wait. You understand what I'm saying? When I started to recognize that it must be here now, awakening must be here now. Where else is it going to be? And it's really only how much I'm paying attention to what is real about me now already that makes a difference. 24 and a half years of finding ways to avoid looking at that, we could say. So that urgency is the unwillingness or the lack of ability to postpone it anymore is a very auspicious thing. And it is to be celebrated when it feels terrible, but it's to be celebrated. It doesn't matter whether it seems to take 25 years or 6 months or one day. It's the same journey anyway. It's the infinite consciousness coming to the point where it says, I'm really quite done with experiencing myself to be a small, limited being that is born and is going to die. All the rest of it is really getting to that point, isn't it? Bringing ourselves to that point. It doesn't matter how long, if we're brand new, if this is our first day in Satsang, or if we think we've been seeking for 50 years. It's really the process of many imagined lifetimes coming to this point where the infinite consciousness is no longer willing to play with any sense of limitation. That's all.
So, because I heard from other teachers that, you know, like this process about 10, 15 years, and I'm like, I can't take this for 10, 15 years.
You've already done that. We've already been through a large amount of imagined lifetimes to get to this point. Why else would you find yourself in such a direct teaching? This is as direct as it gets. All I'm going to tell you is you're already free. I'm not going to give you any process or the process that is given, like contemplation and inquiries, to see how free you already are. We're all here because we're all here in such a direct teaching, of which there are many direct teachings and teachers. But we're here because we can't wait. Something inside is incapable of postponing.
Thank you so much for reassuring me.
It's not an event in the future awakening. It's, am I living free right now? Right? You already are free, but are you conscious of that freedom in this moment? Right? And then the next moment, am I living free right now? Until that becomes a habit. That's all awakened beings have done.
So I have to really push for it. I really would love, I mean, I know you don't, because I know that you also said that don't push for it because it's the separate self pushing for it. But I did once. One day I was just sick of everything. And I was like, I'm just gonna stay with distance of I, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt by nights a portal opened, you know, something was different.
By
And then I
focusing on who you really are already, right? That's what really, we were speaking about this in the Awakening Together satsang. The sense of I is quite willing to show itself to you what it really is. Everything else is irrelevant. Just coming to see who you really are. What I mean by everything else is irrelevant, I mean everything else we think we have to do to wake up, to deserve it, to be ready for it, all that is nonsense. We already are it. Wonderful. Thank you. We'll finish with Kiara.
Hi, Helen.
I love.
Hi. Um, my I have a question. It's a bit hard to ask the question because, okay, I'll just ask it. What is beyond awareness? That's the self-inquiry question that's really been fun to play with. And I'm I should have put my hand down already because as we were in the queue, oh, we, words, I, yeah, um, something, nothing, nothing is. Sorry. I should have put my hand down because I was something. The question exploded and nothing was achieved, nothing was seen, but it was beautiful and I'm a bit embarrassed, but it's just
Nothing.
sensation.
Question exploded and nothing was achieved. Nothing was seen. Nothingness was achieved. Nothingness was seen.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it? There's nothing beyond awareness. Awareness is not an object. It's fun to ask this question and explore. How big is awareness? Could there be anything other than it? Looks like you're having a good time with it. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. Wonderful. Okay, we will leave it there for today. Thank you so much for all of your brave and authentic sharings as always. It's so amazing. Thank you. Namaste.